What I'm about to share with you is from a paper that was published yesterday in the New England Journal of Medicine. And this paper is concerning the 4 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus in Germany. And this paper was compiled and published by a panel of doctors in Germany. And it takes you through the timeline of when these people were infected, how they were infected, and what they have concluded as they reviewed the timeline from the time they were in contact with the index patient, which is their patient 0, and during their asymptomatic period when they had no symptoms at all. Then, what is even more disturbing is that the fact of what is happening after their symptoms have coincided. In other words, abated, and they no longer show symptoms of the coronavirus at all. So here again, it has yet to be peer reviewed, but I do put credence to it since the New England Journal of Medicine went ahead and decided to publish it. So now, just a brief description of what this paper that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine is all about. It was a case study that was performed by a panel of physicians in Munich, Germany, studying the 4 patients that they currently have that have contracted the 2019 nCoV coronavirus, the timeline of events surrounding their infection, who they were infected by, how long it took for them to show symptoms, and most importantly, what their status was once they recovered from those symptoms. In other words, they supposedly were recovered from the virus, they were showing no more symptoms, what they found to still be true, which will be the most disturbing aspect of this study. So what I want to do right now, because I think it explains it a lot better, is we're going to go over here to figure 1 and we're going to take a look at this timeline. Now what you are seeing, they included with the paper and their findings and conclusions. And it's a graphical representation of what took place during the course of events that resulted in infecting these 4 patients in Munich, Germany. So what happened in the beginning? Well, in the beginning, what happened? There was a Chinese businesswoman, and she traveled from Shanghai, China, which is also notable. She didn't travel from Wuhan. And she traveled from Shanghai, and she attended a business meeting in Munich, Germany. And she attended that meeting from the 19th of January to sometime early on January the 22nd. None of this time was she showing any symptoms of the coronavirus. On the 22nd, she boards a flight to return to China. It was during this flight that she started showing symptoms of the coronavirus. And she was symptomatic from the 22nd through the 24th, which is a relatively short period. Then she was tested by a PCR test, which will show the viral loading a person is still carrying. In other words, are you still infected with the 2019 novel virus? If so, is it still replicating? And are you still shedding the virus? In other words, are you still infectious? And what they found, the Chinese did, on January the 26th, was that yes indeed, this businesswoman was still positive for the virus, still had a high viral loading, was still shedding the virus, and was still infectious. Now understand, most likely, these physicians in Munich, Germany were in communication with the Chinese. And I'll get to that later. Now, we take patient 1. This was a German businessman, and he attended the meeting, the business meeting, on the 20th and the 21st with this Chinese businesswoman, which at no time was she showing symptoms. And then, after 3 days, on January the 24th, he came down with symptoms. And he had symptoms from the 24th through the 27th. So patient 1 had direct contact with the index patient, the Chinese business person from Shanghai. So, human-to-human transmission, we already know that's happening. This study proves that as well. Now, the second patient, also a German businessman, a colleague of the first patient, attended the same business meeting. And he attended it on January the 21st and 22nd. He also had contact with the Chinese businesswoman, direct contact. So both patient 1 and patient 2 had direct contact with this woman from Shanghai, China, which we now know was carrying the 2019 novel coronavirus. On the 24th, he also comes down with symptoms. And he has symptoms from the 24th through the 28th. Here again, not all that long of a period. And then his symptoms clear up. Then we have patient 3. Now patient 3, you can see here what the orange dot with the C means, is they had contact with patient 1. In other words, patient 3 had no contact with the Chinese businesswoman who had traveled from Shanghai. Patient 3 was actually a business colleague of patient 1. So patient 3 had contact with patient 1 on the 20th and the 21st. Then patient 3's symptoms showed up on the 26th of January, 4 days later, or 5, depending on when you want to say patient 3 was infected. Could have been on the 20th, could have been on the 21st. He showed symptoms on the 26th, the 27th, and for part of the 28th. Patient 4, here again, had no contact with the Chinese businesswoman, but also was a business colleague of patient 1 and had contact with patient 1 on the 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th. This businessman's symptoms showed up sometime on January the 26th. He had symptoms from the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. Now, what's important to note about this study is a very positive aspect, and that is that the incubation period, although it does now appear that people that are not showing the symptoms from contracting the 2019 novel coronavirus can indeed infect others. You see, because patient 1 and patient 2 both had contact with the Chinese businesswoman during the period that she was asymptomatic. She was showing no symptoms, none whatsoever. Yet they were infected. Patient 3 and patient 4, even though they did not have direct contact with the Chinese businesswoman, they did have contact with patient 1. So, as you can see here, patient 1 was not symptomatic till the 24th. Patient 3 had contact with patient 1 prior to the onset of symptoms on the 20th and 22nd. Then, again, patient 4 also had contact during the time patient 1 was not symptomatic. And this particular man had contact from the 21st through the 24th. So all of this shows that indeed You can be infected by the 2019 novel coronavirus prior to the onset of symptoms. In other words, there are people that can be out there. They can be infected by the virus, not knowing they are infected, and they are infecting others as they go about their daily lives, going to work, going to meetings, eating out, going home with their families, traveling in public transportation, whatever. This case study has confirmed that this disease is transmittable while people are asymptomatic and showing no sign of the virus. That is what we have feared, not only myself, but even the experts, because this will make it extremely more difficult to control, because you just don't know who has the virus. And this is so unlike SARS. SARS, you were not able to be infected prior to the sign of symptoms showing up in infected people. So understand that. This is now different than SARS. It's also different than influenza. You can check the CDC guidelines. The CDC guidelines for infectious transmission for influenza is, and here again they say, out of all abundance of caution, is 1 day before the onset of symptoms, which we normally refer to as contracting a fever, to 1 day after symptoms subside or otherwise you no longer have a fever. The same was true with SARS. And here again, you can look at the CDC guidelines for SARS, and they will tell you that out of an abundance of caution, 1 day before the onset of symptoms, throughout the period that the patient is showing active symptoms, they were infectious. What this case study is showing, should it prove out to be true, and here again it's only 4 patients in Germany, but I do want to say this. China, for over a week now, has been saying the coronavirus was capable of transmission while people were asymptomatic or showing no signs whatsoever. Now our CDC is still out there saying that that is unconfirmed. This case study from Germany, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, confirms what China has been saying for a while now, that yes indeed, people can infect you and not even show any sign of having the virus. What is most alarming and extremely troubling, if that was not enough, is this. You take a look at the Chinese businesswoman. She returns on a flight to China. She has symptoms up through the 24th. She recovers. They test her, and she shows up positive PCR. Now what a PCR does is it tests you to see if the virus is still active, still multiplying, and the patient is still actively shedding the virus. In other words, infectious. And what they found in China was, indeed, she tested positive with a high viral load and viral shedding. Patient 1, and this is where I got to think that the German physicians were in contact with the Chinese, because they went ahead after patient 1's symptoms subsided on the 27th. Now here again, he was not showing any more signs of symptoms or having the coronavirus. They went ahead and tested him, and he too showed positive PCR, just like the Chinese businesswoman. So he too after symptoms subsided, was still carrying the virus. It was still multiplying within his system, and he was still shedding the virus and capable of infecting others. That's of biblical proportions, people. But it continues. Patient 2, once his symptoms subsided, they went ahead and tested him as well. And they also found him to be positive PCR, the same as businessman 1 and the Chinese businesswoman. So he too had a high viral load, was shedding the virus, and therefore still infectious. Then, on patient 3, they waited till his symptoms subsided on the 28th, and they went ahead and tested him as well and found the same results. He too tested positive. So not only did patient 1, patient 2, and patient 3 all test positive after symptoms had ceased. In other words, folks, it would appear that these 3 patients were recovered from the 2019 novel coronavirus. And they had recovered as far as suffering any of the symptoms of the virus. However, they were still carrying the virus. They still showed that it was multiplying because they were showing a high viral load. They were still shedding the virus, which means they are infectious. Then there's patient 4. Now, they did something a little differently with patient 4, and I don't know why, but patient 4 was tested while he was still symptomatic, still showing signs of symptoms on the 28th as well. And of course, they confirmed, and maybe that's why they did this, they confirmed that he was indeed infectious during the period of time that you do show symptoms. But this what makes this whole study earth-shattering is not only can you infect people without knowing it because you're not showing any symptoms, you can infect them while you have symptoms, which is common. Same with influenza, the same with SARS, and the same with MERS. The coronavirus is just like all of them. But what now, in addition, makes the coronavirus such a menace and extremely hard to control is after your recovery, you are still carrying the active virus. It is still multiplying with your system. You are still shedding the virus, and you can still infect others. And as of this time right now, 31st of January, nobody knows for how long these patients will be infectious. That is yet to be determined. So y'all, let's do a quick recap here, real quickly, of what we've learned from this case study of the 4 confirmed coronavirus cases in Germany. 1, human-to-human transmission confirmed. 2, capable of infecting and spreading virus to others before symptoms appear. In other words, spreading the virus and infecting others while people are asymptomatic. Number 3, still carry the virus and still be able of infecting and spreading the coronavirus after symptoms have subsided and the patient has recovered. And it's that one thing right there that I think is just devastating news. And I hope they're wrong, and I hope this is proven to be wrong and is not the case for all the cases of the coronavirus that are now active. On the good side, though, if there can be a good side to this, the incubation period is from 4 to 6 days, where it had previously been reported it could be anywhere from 1 to 14. Now here again, that's based on these 5 people, the Chinese businesswoman and the 4 patients from Germany. It's still a small sampling. The 5th Takeaway is the length of symptomatic period, and that's the period of time where you're actually suffering from the effects of the virus on your body, is from 3 to 5 days. So there is some good with it. Now, you don't have to take Mr. Tom's word from it, old hick engineer over in Alabama. I do want to recommend another person, and his name is Dr. Roger Scheult. I think it's, Scheult. And he has a YouTube channel. It's called Med Cram Exam. And I will link a video that he has also just done today, where he actually draws out this same timeline that you saw, that I was showing you, that is the events, and he actually draws the timeline out for you and explains it as he goes. And he does a damn good job of it, probably better than I have. So I'll link that in the description below. I will also link this paper that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine as well. So you will have the resources, and then you can make a decision for yourself. Here again, we're not trying to promote panic and fear, trying to give you up-to-date information. That's what I'm trying to research for myself, my family, and my friends, so we can make appropriate decisions. And here again, I hope to God this case study is wrong, because if it's right, I really don't know what to do. With all that said, folks, until I see you on the next video, I want you to take care. Stay safe, stay prepared, and God bless each and every one of you. Goodbye for now.